Good afternoon and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's a nice warm spring day here in Irving, Texas, where it can't decide if it, outside can't decide if it wants to rain or not. Anyway, what we're going to do today is we're going to take up a topic appropriate for the, I said it kind of tongue in cheek, but didn't even think about part two being during the days of unleavened, but part two of a study I started last time called The Devil Made Me Do It. And last time, we reviewed the conditions of the human heart that lead men to sin, that cause sin. And so far, we seem to find that the bulk of the man's problem in relation to sin and iniquity lies in the human heart, not necessarily with the devil himself or demons. But what role do they play in this? And they do have their role in this, but I think as we go through this, we're going to find it's rather limited. Because for a quick review, for those who may not have heard it last time, I'm going to do a quick review. Let's do a quick review of some of the conditions of the hearts of men, because this is. Let's start with Jeremiah 17:9. Just a very quick review of the heart condition in man. Because last time we did a review of scripture, and then I went into story time. We'll probably do a little bit of story time today. Jeremiah 17, verse 9. The heart is deceitful above all things, and it is desperately wicked. Who can understand it? Now Yahweh, search the heart, and I test the mind. Even gives every man according to his ways, according to the fruits of his doings. Let's try Ecclesiastes 9. Ecclesiastes 9, and we're going to find that. Ecclesiastes 9, the first three verses. There it is. For I consider all this in my heart, Solomon writes. For I consider all of this in my heart, that I could declare it all, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hands of Elohim. People neither know nor love nor hatred by anything that they see before them. Don't believe everything you see, he's saying. All things come alike to all. One event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good, the clean and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and to him who does not sacrifice. As in the good, so in the sinner. He who takes an oath and he who does not take an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that one thing happens to all. If one thing happens to everybody. You mean no one's immune from time and circumstance? Isn't that one of the lessons we get to Tower Siloam when Joshua spoke about it? When he said, when people came asking him, well, how about all those people that died in the tower and fell over? Weren't they all more the wicked than anyone else? And Joshua told them, no, they were not. He said, but unless they repent, they'll perish all the same. Truly, the hearts of sons of men are full of evil. Madness is in their hearts while they live. And after that, they go to the dead. Let's jump ahead to Matthew 15, please. We're not going to cover all of them, but we're going to cover a few. Matthew 15. Matthew 15. Let's pick it up in verse 11, please. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of it. This is what defiles a man. The disciples came to him and said, you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying, but answered he, Joshua said, every plan which my heavenly Father has not planned will be uprooted. Leave them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind leads the blind, both will fall into the ditch. And Peter said to him, well, explain the parable to us. Joshua said, you still don't understand, do you, Peter? You're still without understanding. Do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth and goes into the stomach is eliminated? That you eat it, the body dissipates of it, gets rid of it. Do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart. And those are that things that defile a man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornication, thefts, false witnesses, and blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man. Let's check out James 3. Actually, let's stop at Romans 1 first before we go to James. Let's go to Romans 1 very quickly. Romans 1, we'll pick it up in verse 29. Actually, back up to verse 28. Even though these did not like to retain Yahweh in their knowledge, Yahweh gives them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness. He said they're already filled with it. He said they're being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceitful, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, they're backbiters, they're haters of Yahweh, they're violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to their parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, and unmerciful. Who, knowing the righteous judgment of Yahweh, those that practice such things are deserving of death. Not only those who do the same, but those who approve of, or who approve of those who practice them. Back, just a quick note out of verse 29. He said, being filled with all unrighteousness. These people are already filled with it, with the unrighteous. That's their own weaknesses and impurities in their own heart, the things they find appealing. Feel pride of life, lust of the eyes, the pride of the flesh, as Peter puts it. Let's try one more. Let's go to James. Let's go to James 1. So what's the conclusion of all this? The end result of sin. It says, actually, let's back up to verse 13. Let no one say when he is tempted, well, I'm tempted by Yahweh. But Yahweh cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. Well, if he's not the tempter, then who? Because remember, we read back in Jeremiah. He tests the heart. Now he's a master teacher, and he provides a test. But he does not tempt anyone. Let no one say, I am tempted by Yahweh, for Yahweh cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires, and he is enticed. By his own desires. All the stuff we just read up earlier. As I read this, I don't read the devil making me do it. Be not, because then verse 15, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Again, when desire has conceived, it starts with desire. It gives birth to sin. And first we have the temptation, and we have the act, and when it's full grown, it brings forth death. And we talked about a few examples last time. But there seems to be a common teaching in virtually all churches, Sabbath keeping, Sunday keeping, and any kind of church you can imagine, about the devil's role in sin, about, well, as we can say, Flip Wilson used to say all the time, the devil made me do it. I do. So does that mean the devil has his role in some of these things? Or do demons have a role? Well,
in the beginning.
In a manner of speaking, they do. And you brought up in the beginning, so let's just go to the beginning.
When a demon leaves somebody, it comes back with 7 worse trying to get back in. You confess your sin and that spirit leaves you, and then...
I'm not so sure about that. That's not the biblical pattern.
I've seen it.
Where are we going, Curtis?
Let's go to Genesis 3 from the very beginning. Here Yahweh had just finished all his creation, and everything was good. Genesis. Now we don't know how long it was from the completion of the creation to this account here, because quite frankly, we're not told. There are a lot of people who pretend they do, but let's get real, we're not told. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field. So who was the serpent? I don't hear anybody. Satan, thank you, because he's clearly identified in Revelation, that serpent of old in Revelation 12. The serpent, which was more cunning than any beast in the field, which Yahweh had made, he said to the woman, has Yahweh indeed told you not to eat out of any tree of the garden? The woman said to the serpent, well, we can eat any tree of the garden, but that tree over there, the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim said, well, we can't eat it, nor shall we touch it, because lest we die. The serpent said to the woman, he's being a real used car salesman here. Said, oh, come on, you're not going to die, because Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes are going to be open, and you will be like Elohim, and you'll know good from evil. Now what's he doing here? He's playing on something in the heart. Inherent in the human condition, it would be in the flesh.
Curtis.
Yes.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
It always crossed my mind.
Go ahead. Feel
about
free.
The fact that what you just said about the flesh.
Go ahead. Ask.
The difference between Adam and Eve. Adam was born of the spirit. Eve was born of the flesh. Do you think that's the reason why he approached Eve instead of Adam?
As a certain way, but what was hard to explain is it would be Eve's. Well, one thing we're told in the scriptures is that the women were supposedly of the weaker sex, weaker gender, and it was a man's job to step up and protect it and be a protector. Adam didn't do that. I'm not picking on the women because
no, I'm not saying it's picking on the woman.
Right.
But
I just wanted to make that clear.
The fact that he didn't approach Adam.
He approached the woman, but he stood by and remained silent. I've always found that interesting.
That's what I found interesting, because Eve was taken out of Adam, which became flesh. But Adam wasn't born in flesh.
How many times do we men say?
He wasn't made in flesh, what I'm saying.
Right.
He was made in the spirit.
Question, how many times do we men say yes, dear, to please our wife or our significant other? Yes, John. Maybe you could help.
I think that the reason why he approached Eve, because Adam was asleep. You know, he wasn't, Eve was walking around in the garden. Adam was asleep. So I don't know whether he would have approached Adam or not. But, Eve was walking around in the garden. Adam was fast asleep.
Well, Scripture says that Eve was deceived And
That Adam was not.
He was not. He knew this, but there's also, you gotta look at the oaths and the vows where it talks about men and females. The father, the husband is the authority over the house, and he can cancel any vows that a woman makes before sundown. And the daughter also, if she's living in the house. So there's an authority there that the husband has to take and control things and shut stuff down. Like if she were to say, I'm gonna fast for 300 days, I mean, and I make an oath to you, the husband can say, well, I cancel that.
Well, there's no question about that part.
But-
It's not about authority figure in the
But-
house, but the fact that
In fact, he didn't step
They were
up and
there.
stop. He could have, the thing for him to have done was to intervene, step up between, no, get away from my wife.
Or after she did eat, not take of it and take it up to the father.
Well, but after she ate, it was too late. Yes, Trey.
Well, when you're reading it, it doesn't seem like she didn't have to go find her husband or nothing. He
That's
he was-
right, well,
he was with
that
her. He
wasn't,
says-
he didn't need,
that's what I'm saying.
It said
maybe,
when
maybe the
woman-
sleep wasn't a physical sleep.
He said when the woman was at the tree, she saw the fruit was good for food. It was pleasing to her eyes. The tree desired to make one wise. She took the fruit thereof, ate, gave it to her husband who was with her, and he did eat. So he was there. I believe he was there for the whole
Yes,
situation.
with her.
And that's the point. He was there with her the whole
It
time.
doesn't say he was. That didn't
He was
happen.
there with her. Because Eve saw that it was, I'll get you a second, Dennis, that it was, the fruit was good. Well, gee, I wanna be wise. I don't wanna walk around being dumb. If it's gonna make me smart and make me wise, that's what I wanna do. And she ate of it, and her husband went along with her. Yes, Dennis?
She argued with Satan. He didn't.
That's the
He
point.
didn't raise one argument at all. He
Remained
evidently is
silent.
hearing this conversation and he's not taking part in it.
At least she
That's my
debated it
point.
to a point,
That's what I'm saying.
and he
Why,
deceived her.
why did he not?
I
You
don't
have to
know.
ask him.
We don't know. That's
But
one
you
of,
know
that's
what
one of the
I'm
great
saying?
mysteries of all time, it seems. We
I mean,
don't
do you get what
know.
my point I'm trying to make is, did participate in what was going on, around him.
Yeah.
So,
But he did eat of the tree
Yeah.
without argument. So who was the dumber one?
Fast forwarding through the rest of the story. Satan gets them to eat the fruit. He departs momentarily, stage left. Yet Yahweh's walking through the garden. He finds Adam and Eve. He says, well, we were hiding because we were naked. Well, how'd you find out we were naked? Well, then the blame game starts. Starts at verse 12. Then the man said, well, Yahweh questions the man. He said, who told you were naked? In verse 11. Why have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you that you're not supposed to eat? Verse 12, the man said, well, the woman you gave to be with me, well, she gave it to me and I ate it. He didn't put up an argument. She did it. I guess she made me do it. I guess the devil made me do it. She made me do it. It goes to show that weakness goes back to the very beginning. Yes, Dennis.
Actually, in the verse 13, it was the serpent deceived me and I ate it.
That's Eve's response. Yes, in the next verse, you're correct. And Yahweh said to the woman, verse, said, what is this you've done? And the woman said, well, the serpent deceived me and I ate it. She was deceived.
Mhm.
Adam was not. He went with it anyway.
Mhm.
So the lesson we read from here, one of the lessons, many lessons anyway, is that the consequence for sin oftentimes remains, whether you do it intentionally or not. There are certain consequences that follow. And Yahweh proceeds with his punishment on the serpent and the man and the woman. But what was the role of the serpent here? Did he make them do it? Did he come out with like some gangster? You know, like some guy in the gangster movies. Says, we've seen the gangster movies, like use is gonna do this or I'm gonna blow your brains out. Or the Nazis in the movies. Doctor, if you do not perform this experiment, I will have to terminate you. Okay, first John, then Dennis.
Well, I often wondered, had Adam not have joined her in partaking of the fruit, often wondered what would have occurred after that. Maybe, Yahweh would have, gave him a different, female, or.
That's
maybe
possible,
might
but we
have
don't know that.
Gave her for Adam's sake or something, I don't know.
That's,
But that's
both have actually been suggested. He might have gotten another wife, or he might have spared Eve for his sake, possibly. That's a possibility too.
See, but you see what it's taken the whole derivative of woman and man in their
Mhm.
place, right? In the whole scheme of things.
Dennis?
Men and women are equal in the sight of Yahweh.
Exactly,
There is no one above the other.
exactly. That's my point.
They're actually one flesh.
One flesh.
They're a God, they're one, that's correct. And, of course, the question here is not, while these are great questions, interesting questions, that's not really pertinent to the topic. But what we need to focus on is, what was the role of the devil in this? In this case, he could provide a deception. He could wave a little carrot, that little proverbial carrot in front of the horse, if you will, to lead him on. Something that some kind of bait we would take, like a fisherman trying to catch a fish, a man trying to lead a horse, whatever. Yes, David.
Yeah, I wanted to add to Dennis, because I know some people are gonna ask a question. Man and woman are equal, and when scripture says that the woman is the lesser vessel, the body is lesser, but the spirit is equal.
Mm-hmm.
They are equal.
So we don't see an act done in force, only a mere temptation. Let's see. What other roles because so far what we see, at least so far, is that these demons have to have a gate, if you will. A gate, an entryway to get in, if you will. How about giving them a place, as James does in James 4:7, and like Paul does in Ephesians 6:11. Don't give him a place. Draw close to Yahweh and he will flee. Let's turn to Matthew 8, please. Let's turn to Matthew 8, please. Let's pick it up in verse 28. This is the account of two men in garden tombs, two demon-possessed men. We'll pick it up in verse 28. When he had gone to the other side, to the country of the Gergesenes, there met him two demon-possessed men coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, that no one could pass that way. And suddenly they cried out to him, saying, "What have you got to do with us, Joshua, you son of Elohim? Have you come to torment us before the time?" Now a good way off from them was a herd of many swine feeding. So the demons begged him, "Please, just, if you cast us out, can you let us go to those pigs over there? How about we go to the herd of swine? Don't send us to the pit." And he said, "Okay." He gives them exactly what they want. He said, "Okay, go." So when they had come out, they went into the herd of swine. Suddenly the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place into the sea, and they perished in the water. And those who who kept them fled. Evidently it scared them. And they went away into the city and told everything, including what happened to the demon-possessed men. Behold, the whole city came out to meet Joshua. When they saw him, they begged him to depart from their region. Now you would think that people, sound and minded people, would be grateful that they made, a legion of demons go away. People could pass through in peace. But not these people. But let's focus on the men. What was a demon possessed? What were these people doing that they had a whole legion of demons in them? Because one was brought up that when a demon is cast out, house is clean and swept and put away. But then he can come back and but if he's repossessed, he brings back 7 more with him that are worse than he is. We read that in Mark 16:9 with the case of Mary Magdalene, whom Joshua cast out 7 demons. So if he cast out 7 demons out of her, what's the insinuation there? It wasn't her first time. Yes, Dennis.
And where did he cast them?
In this particular case, that he allowed them to go into the swine.
But what is the normal? Where do they go normally when they cast them out? When they're cast out?
He would either send them to the pit or just tell them to go.
It sends them to the deepest, darkest pit, and wait for
judgment.
Yeah.
It says also, well, it really says, when they leave a man, they go out into dry places. That's like the body's signified in water also, so they like a place like that. And the dry places, they go out here, and then they find out that they don't have a body and they can't manifest their character anymore in a person. So they come back with 7 more to retaliate for the time that they got kicked out. That's the enemy comes, just like Egypt.
But the difference here is the one that Yeshua cast out, the apostles cast out. They were cast into utter darkness, and they could not come back. And that's why they asked to be dumped into the swine, most likely, so that when the swine died, they were free to return to areas in the world. Whereas otherwise, they wouldn't have been.
But
Can you show me that? Can you show me that? Because I've read that. I've never seen that he cast them out of outer darkness. It's always went out, it goes out into dry places.
Here, we're not concerned about what happens with demons when they're cast out. That's not the focus of this study. The study is instead is what role do they play in sin, and how did this whole legion of demons get inside these 2 men? Sin. They gave the devil a place, if you will. And what place was that? We read that already, through the conditions of their heart. And if one is cast out and they're repossessed, they bring more trouble. So evidently, this was not the first time for these 2 guys either. Now what were they doing? That they were literally just inviting demons to come and have a place inside them. You know the Jewish tradition at Passover, where they leave an empty seat for Elijah? Well, it was, for lack of a better phrase, let's use this analogy. That's what these guys were doing. That's what people are doing when we give the devil a place. Because let us turn. There's actually an answer for this, an explanation we find that we might find in here. And that's in Isaiah 65. Let's turn to Isaiah 65 momentarily, please. Isaiah 65, and we're going to pick it up in let's pick it up in verse 2. I have stretched out my hands all day long to a rebellious people, who walk in a way that is not good, but according to what? their own thoughts. Thank you.
They're hard.
To their own thoughts. A people who provoke me to anger continually to my face, even if they think they're doing it in secret and Yahweh does not see it, that tells you no matter how secret it is, he still sees it, doesn't he? A man can engage in sin away from our face and we might not know. But Yahweh sees, still in his face. A people who provoke me to anger, continue in my face, who sacrifice where? In gardens. And they burn incense upon the altars of the brick. And those who sit where? They sit and sleep amongst the graves, and they spend the night where? In the tombs. Just like these guys were doing. They were in gardens. Who what? They eat swine's flesh. They eat swine's flesh. And the broth of abominable things is in their vessels. And they say, "No, you keep away. Stay back away from me. Don't come near me, because I'm holier than you are." And these are smoke in my nostrils and a fire that burns all day. So what if what does smoke straight to your face do? That's right. No one likes it, getting their nose full of smoke and in their eyes and in their nose. It gives you that to your eyes. You gotta cover your eyes and turn away. And your eyes sting a moment, don't they? For a minute or so. Hurt your eyes for a minute. Well, that's how Yahweh feels about people who engage in the practice they just read here. It hurt his eyes just to look at it. And yet we can find two men in this account of Matthew that seem to fit this profile. Because what was right next to the garden tomb? A herd of swine. What are these people eating in Isaiah 65? They're eating swine, they're eating abominable broth made of only who knows what. They're burning incense on altars of brick, and they're sitting as they sit amongst the graves, and they're sleeping in the tombs. These guys are literally playing with fire, if you will. And we see at the end result what they got for it. At least what two men we know about got for it in Matthew 8. Some things just don't change, do they? People call it what they will. It doesn't change what it is. Any question or comment so far? Yes, Tino.
In verse 3, where it says, "A people that provoke me to anger continually to my face, that sacrifice in gardens and burn incense upon altars of brick." Just looking at the wording of sacrifice in gardens, could we say that the gardens could be the mind, or where you would plant your thoughts? And a sacrificing upon an altar would be considered like your heart, where if it's a stony heart.
Now you're getting somewhere, Tino.
And you don't have a heart of flesh for the Father.
Now you're getting somewhere, yes.
Of whatever your fleshly desires are.
Your gardens, your tombs can be both figurative and they can be literal. And in Matthew 8, guess what? They were both.
Right.
They were both. That's what gave the demons the entry. And when a multitude of demons were in these guys, what does that tell us? It wasn't their first time either. Because remember, it's only when the demon's been cast out. When he returns, he brings bad company with him. Let's try Revelation 16, please. This is the sixth bowl. We're gonna pick it up in verse 12. Then the sixth bowl, then the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon. What do we read about what comes out of the mouth? What did Joshua teach us that come? It's the things that come out of your mouth that
Things from the heart.
it's things from the heart. Thank you. That make you unclean. I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So if it's coming out of their mouth, all these things are proceeding from their mouth, that means these guys got nothing good to say, as we're going to see when we keep reading. For they are the spirits of demons, performing signs which go out to the kings of the earth and to the whole world to gather them to the great battle of the great day of Yahweh Almighty. So again, they're gathering these, they're out recruiting for this army they're going to bring against Yahweh. But are they forcing people to go? Get drafted or face a court-martial? Get drafted and report or face court-martial? Come with me or get shot where, or get buried where you stand, as I've heard said in some of these westerns. Boy, I'll bury you where you stand. No, or is it, again, what do we see here? It's deception. It's more deception. And they're playing on something that's already in the human heart, especially with a rebellious earth. They're shaking their fist at Yahweh. In spite of all that's happened to them, these people still will not repent. How about the census of David? Where it says when Yahweh, or when we're told Satan stood up against him. And he did it, and he took this census that he wasn't supposed to. Remember the advice of Joab was, no, don't do this. He did it anyway. And while it's not said, David evidently gave in to it. But let's look up to a man who, is there any stories of account other than Joshua? Because we got a few accounts of Joshua. A couple accounts of Joshua standing up to the devil himself. That's found in both Luke 4 and Matthew 4, where he offers in different temptations. And all 3 times, he doesn't take the bait. He steps closer to Yahweh. Yes, Tino.
Another account, I was gonna mention this earlier, but I wanted to continue on what you were saying there, but when we were talking about, the husband and wife scenario, Job 2 is another one.
Job. Here we go. That's this, yes.
Job 2, verse 9, I think.
Yes, Job 2. Let's turn to Job, please. Actually, we're going to start in Job 1, the first chapter of Job. That's where we're going to start. We'll catch up to his wife shortly. Job, chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. That man was blameless and he was upright, who feared Elohim and he shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He had great possessions. Fast forwarding a little bit. In verse 5, so it was on the days of feasting that run their course, Job would send and sanctify them, that he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offering according to the number of them all. For Job said, maybe that my sons have sinned and cursed Elohim in their hearts. And Job did this regularly. Enter, stage left. Excuse me, stage left over here. Stage left. Now there was a day when the sons of Elohim came and presented themselves before Yahweh, and Satan also came among them. Enter stage left. The old serpent himself. Yahweh said to Satan, well, where do you come from? Satan answers it, oh, you know, I've been going to and fro back on the face of the earth, walking back and forth across it. Yahweh says to Satan, well, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the face of the earth. He's a blameless and upright man. He fears Elohim, and he does what? He does what? He shuns evil, yes. Thank you. Like somebody else I recall we read about. Someone we just mentioned, Joshua. So Satan said to him, what? Does he fear you for nothing? After all, because you made this hedge around him and his house and everything he has on every side, and you've blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But I'll tell you what, if you'll stretch out your hand and touch everything he has, he's going to curse you to your face. Joshua said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power. All he has is in your power. However, do not lay a hand on him. Satan went out from the presence of Yahweh. No problem. He's thinking. Verse 13, there was a day when the sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plying and the donkeys were feeding beside them. When the Sabaeans, they came and raided and took them away. And indeed they have killed all the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, another also came and said, the fire of Elohim fell from heaven and burned up all the sheep and the servants, and it consumed them. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, verse 17, another again said, look, the Chaldeans formed 3 columns, and they raided the camels and took them away, and they killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Yet while he was still speaking, another came and said, well, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness. Probably sounds like a tornado to me. So a great wind, or do they have tornadoes in Israel? I don't know. I'll admit, I don't know. But anyway, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they're all dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. And then Job, Satan's in for a disappointment. Job tore his robe, shaved his head. He fell to the ground, and he did what? He worshipped. He said, I came naked from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. And all this, Job did not charge Yahweh with any wrong. He didn't blame Yahweh. Job didn't take the bait. There are other lessons from Job, but we're going to focus on sin for right now. Chapter 2, verse 1. There was a day when the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan also came amongst them to present himself before Yahweh. Here we go again, enter stage left. So Yahweh said to Satan, oh yeah, well, where have you come from? Satan answered, oh, you know, from walking back to and fro on the earth, from walking back and forth across it. And Yahweh said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is no one like this man on the face of the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears Yahweh, and he shuns evil? And yet he still holds fast to, he remembers his previous conversation. He still holds fast to his integrity. Although you incited me to destroy him without cause. So Satan says to Yahweh, says, skin for skin. I tell you what, because all a man has, he'll give to save his own life. But I tell you what, if you stretch your hands now and touch his bone and his flesh, and if you put his skin in the game, yeah, he'll curse you to your face. Satan, and Yahweh said to Satan, okay, behold, he is in your hand, but you will spare his life. So what do we see from demons? Still a power, they have the power of delusion, temptation. In this case, they can even cause destruction. But there's still a limit to it. What are those limits? The ones imposed by Yahweh. And what other limits do they have? We were told in Job, he fears Yahweh, he shuns evil, and he holds to his integrity. And this is what it means precisely. To draw near Yahweh and the devil will flee. That's exactly what it means. Because if you do that, demons have no power over you or anyone else who does that. We're given a great example in Job. Of course, his greatest temptation is going to come from his buddies who nag him on and 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 on through the rest of the book, right? Verse 6 in chapter 2. Satan said to Yahweh, behold, he is in your hand, not spared life. So Satan went up from the presence of Yahweh and struck Job with painful blows from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd which would scrape himself while he was still in the midst of the ashes. Then his wife comes to him and said, what? Really? Are you still holding fast to your integrity? Just curse Elohim and die. But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Indeed, shall we accept good from Yahweh? But shall we not also accept adversity? In all this, Yahweh did not sin. Job did not sin. Did not sin with his lips. He ruled his. I find it interesting that he did not sin with his lips, because what does James say about our lips and our tongue? They are unruly. That's the hardest thing to control.
We always also say we will not be without tribulation.
That is correct. So what does the devil and demons have to do with sin? All they can do is, they're very limited in what they can do, actually. Because there's nothing in the biblical pattern that forces, that we see in demons forcing us against our will to sin. It's just not there. It's just like the lesson, the conclusion we came in part 1. So much of it lies in the human heart. Because the power of demons have two limitations. One set, the boundary set by Yahweh, and the ones we see set in place in Job. Shunning evil, fearing Yahweh, holding on to what is good, holding on to your integrity.
Not allowing your heart.
That's exactly what it means. To draw to Yahweh, and the devil will flee from you. Now, in terms of what else demons can do, well, that's not the topic of this study. The idea here was just to focus their role in sin and temptation. They can provide delusion. They can provide signs and lying wonders. Like we read in 2 Thessalonians 2, we read some in Revelation as well. There's probably some a little bit involved in that in Exodus with Janus and Jambres, because it said that we were told they consulted their black art when they duplicated the first 2 or 3 miracles performed by Moses, but afterward they weren't able to. But nonetheless, they have to have something to work with. When they don't come taking possession of a man or a woman against their will. Again, he has to have a place. He has to have that portal, if you will, that proverbial door, that place. Like those fellas we read of in Matthew 8, like the scribes and Pharisees when we read of in John 8, when he tells them that they're the sons of the devil because they love his ways and they love his lies, and I'm paraphrasing, and they want to do them. They find pleasure in them. The contrast is in Job. Joshua and Job. Any question or comment? Because at the end of the day, we have, oh yes, Raquel.
In the
Raquel and David.
Yeah, in the millennium, they can't blame the devil made me do it because he was.
That's right. And in judgment, you're not
Millennium.
going to blame the devil. You can't say the devil made me do it. It's going to be all about you. Yes, David.
I was just gonna say, you gave the example or the scripture of when he was saying that they are of their father, the devil, because of the way that they were asking.
It has to do with their heart condition.
Yeah, we should make sure we are of our father Yahweh.
Yahweh.
And how we act. And if we're of our father, how can we be overcome with anything that's evil if we rely on him? And so there's a clear distinction of who is your father, or who are you following? Who are you mimicking? And we mimic the Father Yahweh as opposed to the devil. So therefore, Yahweh will give us his spirit to protect us from the wiles of the devil. So we have to make sure that the comforter, set apart spirit, is in us so that it helps us through these times and not leave us. And like you said, if we are following the devil, set apart spirit can't abide with us, and if it leaves us, then we open ourselves up to the wiles of the devil.
And there is one thing in the biblical pattern about possession. I'll just phrase, again, that's not the lesson here, but the biblical pattern, particularly in the New Testament, once a demon has a hold of someone, they either leave on their own prerogative when it's no longer convenient for them, or number two, it takes someone to remove them, cast them out for them. You don't get rid of your own. That's not in the biblical pattern. Yes, Tino, do you have your hand up?
Well, no, I didn't, but I said a comment on.
Well, I saw your wheels turning anyway.
Oh, well, they were. Also, Yahshua said also with fasting and prayer. that-
Fasting and prayer.
For that. Yeah.
That's very true.
But in any case, we find the power of demons quite limited. The answer at the end of the day is, in a nutshell, flee, turn unto Yahweh, and the devil will flee unto you. We will be back at 3 o'clock with David Gibson for the main message. Praise Yah.